We are a movement, a purpose. We exist to empower those who strive for more. We grew our roots in Baltimore.
Baltimore is an amazing city. That attitude of that city, it is Under Armour. Baltimore's home.
Man, you know we love this city. We got grit. We're dripping in it.
It's one of the great entrepreneurial stories.
A phenomenon.
The company is expanding its brand.
The OG always takes hits.
We started this thing.
But we protect it and we grew.
It's us versus them.
Cause our drive to make athletes better is what fueled us.
The first handshake they had with the Under Armour brand won't be a digital handshake.
Completely revolutionary.
Deal in the history of collegiate sport.
And it wasn't just at home. It was a march across the planet. A movement.
Under Armour, a rising star globally.
Global brand. Internationally, you're killing it.
We celebrate our victories. But you know what? We've got some scars from our journey too.
She is down.
Tom Brady's on the downside of his career.
But the greats, they get back up, reflect on defeat, change their angle, reset the clock, and draw up a new play.
Make no mistake, Under Armour is a growth company.
We love everything that we're getting ready to get into.
Everything's about getting better. Announcing the launch of the Curry brand.
We empower those who strive for more. And that goes beyond the field.
I'm ready to use my voice to speak up in this moment in history.
Under Armour is working to help fight the coronavirus.
Finale plays for Baltimore.
You sparked a nice big movement. You get to represent it together.
We are building a platform that changes lives. Our story is the stuff of legends, and it's only just begun.
Welcome to the stage, founder and CEO of Under Armour, Kevin Plank, and Chief Design Officer of Under Armour, John Varvatos.
All right, well, thank you, and welcome, everyone. It's great to be here, and hopefully you felt some of that energy that just came through.
Got the king in the front row, too. Wow, I mean, royalty, royalty.
It sounds like a weekend of summit. I've heard a lot about this, but I never had the chance to actually be here, so what a privilege. And coming in last night, it was definitely hard to get to sleep in a cabin, because it goes hard here, right, John?
Yeah, a little bit of movement, right?
You've done this before, though. You've been here.
No, I haven't. I've only been on boats, not ships. How many people first time on Summit to Sea?
Yeah.
Quite a few, eh? Great. Are you enjoying it so far? Well, we're going to take it up a notch here, so.
We're hopefully going to be able to give some perspective. Maybe just also help us out. And keep coming in. Feel free. Sit down. How many entrepreneurs in the room? I'm sure just about everybody. That's what we're doing here at Summit. But how about a round of applause for the entrepreneurs? You know, I heard a great quote recently, and the way that hopefully we can inflect today is to bring a little bit of energy, bring a little bit of inspiration. And we're going to do that by trying to accomplish a few things, which is maybe giving you both of our stories and sort of how this collaboration, this partnership, this teamwork between John Varvatos and Under Armour actually came to be. We want to talk about what it means to be brand, because I think that's important regardless of what you're doing or what your field might be. And then most importantly, I'd like to just hit on positivity. I think it's so important to our world today. As I saw a quote recently, and it was interesting. It said, do you know who's having a really hard time right now? And the answer was everybody. And so I think we can all feel that. And so as leadership, I think it's critical that we all begin with this idea of empathy and understanding what our teams are going through, what our consumers are going through, what our customers are going through, and how we can be different in doing that. And so maybe, John, I'll just kick it off and just frame for everybody a little background, how familiar you are with our brand, and a little bit of the Under Armour story. So for those not familiar with us, I was and maybe this will resonate with you as entrepreneurs as well. I was an athlete. It's all I wanted to do when I was a kid. Is I fell in love with sport, and I fell in love particularly with football. And I was like pretty good, but not good enough to be great. And I think that's part of some of the foundation of Under Armour, which is this underdog, long shot, not tall enough, not fast enough, all the things of having to try harder and work more than the others. And that sort of created the DNA of UA. But I was also an entrepreneur, is that this isn't something that was invented. And for any of the entrepreneurs here, it's not necessarily a class that you can take. It's not a talk that you can sit in on. It's something that you have to practice and you just have to be. And for myself, that was growing up as a kid. It was, I grew up in a place called Kensington, Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. Yep, there you go. And it was, you know, when it snowed outside, it was shoveling snow in the wintertime. It was a lawn mowing business in the summertime. It was getting into high school and then to college, where I started my first business was me and 3 of my brothers going down to RFK for a Grateful Dead show when my brother, who'd been in Guatemala studying Spanish, he'd come back and he brought these bricks of bracelets and he paid like basically nothing for them. And so we were out there selling these things, $2 a piece, 3 for $5. And I'll never forget, I was like 14 at the time. My other brother was 16, the other one 19. And we'd taken the subway down to RFK. We're in the parking lots before the concert. And my one brother came back. It was like we left at 11, like meet back here at 1. And we had these boards set up with these little hemp bracelets that we were wearing, just like you'd find at a Dead show. And I remember my one brother came back, and we were out supposed to go sell these things, again, $2 a piece, 3 for $5. And we met back up at 1 o'clock, and my one brother, Colin, said, I said, how'd you do? He said, well, I sold the first few, and I started feeling guilty about how much we were charging for them, so I gave the rest away. He's my 16-year-old brother. My 19-year-old brother came back, and he said, he actually didn't say much, because he was like, he started basically changing them for beers, trading them for beers and for other things, and he was sort of out to lunch, and I'm like, look, I got $300 in my pocket. I've been out of stock for an hour. Give me the inventory, you dopes. Like, I'm gonna go sell these things. And so like that entrepreneurial spirit or fire, like it really comes from a passion and a love and really believing in it. And I was able to transfer that into going to college and having a rose delivery business, because I was a student athlete. I was a football player. And at Maryland, you weren't allowed to have a job when you were an athlete at the time. And so the idea is, well, what business can I build? And so it was the one time of the year, right around Valentine's Day, where my first year I started and built this Calvin and Hobbes sort of flyer that I put around campus at the time. Had a marketing campaign, $25 roses. I found somebody to sell me flowers, 25 cents a stem. Sold 100 dozen, grossed about $3 grand with taxes, delivery charges, and things in there. Cost me about $1,500. So it was a profitable business. Year 2, 250 dozen. Year 3, 375 dozen. My senior year, we delivered 1,186 dozen flowers in a single day. It grossed about $70,000. And at the end of it, I learned some valuable lessons, because I say 1,186 dozen because I was supposed to sell 1,500 dozen flowers. And I realized I never wanted to deal in live inventory again. And the other valuable lesson from that, which is a longer story, is make sure anybody that works with you can count to 12. And believe me, when you're dealing with customer service of again, the kid that didn't want to spend $75 but bought the $25 flowers from the on-campus delivery person, my girlfriend got yellow roses instead of red roses, and so she dumped me because, you guys, she said that yellow meant friendship and not love, and, to do these things, these ventures of being entrepreneurs, these are like, 3 days of staying up all night long and just focusing and worrying about every detail. And by learning customer service like that, when the phone call comes, 8 o'clock on Valentine's Eve, and you're just like, listen, pal, if she dumped you over yellow roses, you had problems long before you called me, so deal with it. So that led to Under Armour, which was, as an athlete, again, I wasn't the fastest or the biggest kid, but I wanted the best advantage. And so the idea that I had was, I never liked the way that these cotton t-shirts fell underneath my football equipment. Why doesn't anyone make a better alternative? Innovation in our industry had always been limited to basically the footwear. Is it an ounce lighter? Is it a micro step better? And apparel was an afterthought, is that we were wearing these big, heavy, soaking wet cotton t-shirts. And this concept or idea that we since have coined the phrase performance apparel began to take shape. And that was this, me going to a local fabric store at the University of Maryland my senior year of college and finding some fabric that fit this idea. Like when we'd go out for warm-ups of a game, the team would come back in and everybody would change their cotton t-shirts out. You'd go out for the first half of a game and everybody would change out their cotton t-shirts, which meant taking your pads off, taking valuable time where you could be talking strategy and other things for the game. And we were just wasting our time and thought, there has to be a better way. So what if we never had to do that for our lower bodies where we'd wear compression shorts, but what if somebody took that synthetic, shiny material and actually tried it for the upper body? And so without knowing anything about this industry, I ended up finishing my senior year in 1995. And then I spent the spring of 96 as I was going to graduate thinking, I think I can start this business. From that 70 grand that I grossed, I netted about 17,000, and that became my seed money for UA. And that's what I threw everything into. Not we're going to build the biggest, baddest brand on the planet, but more importantly, it was I'm going to build the world's greatest t-shirt for football players. And what I use, and one thing I can encourage any of the entrepreneurs here, is to lean in and understand and know the networks that you already have, because my network was the guys I played with in high school. The guys I played with at this prep school that I went to called Fork Union Military Academy, which is like the kind of place you get sent to, not exactly go to. But I built a lot of character there. And so like, I've been playing with house money for a long time. So I look at like that experience as being the moment that really allowed me to sort of change trajectory of what and who I wanted to be. And then ultimately to the University of Maryland. But along all those stops, I had a really good high school team. And from that, we had 11 guys from my team go play Division I college sports, and 5 of them made it to the NFL. From my prep school team was really unique at Fork Union. We started with like 130 guys on the team. Only 65 guys actually made it to the end of the year of that prep school year. And again, it doesn't cost against your college eligibility, so guys would go there, get better SATs, get their grades up. And then at Fork Union, from the team that we had there were 23 guys from my one high school team signed Division I scholarships. 13 wound up getting drafted into the NFL. 3 of them were first-round draft picks, and 1 guy won the Heisman Trophy, named Eddie George. So between my high school team, my prep school team, and then from the University of Maryland, there's 20 to 25 guys playing in college at any time. And what I could tell you about Under Armour is the reason the company was able to start, it was as much about me recognizing the network that I had as much as about the product. Because sitting there at 22 or 23 years old with these bones and this blood that was about being an entrepreneur, for me it was much more about, I'm going to start a company, what's it going to be? I've got this network of, when you put the friends and the friends of friends, probably 50-some players and friends of mine that were playing in the NFL actively, but the active career in the NFL is 3 years and 3 games. So I knew I had a really short window. So what could I give them or send to them or have them participate or endorse that they might be able to wear and try? And so the idea was like, what about this t-shirt? It always bothered me. Cotton t-shirt, dry, weighs 6 ounces, saturated can weigh up to 3 pounds. So by wearing an Under Armour shirt, it would weigh about 3 ounces, and completely saturated would weigh about 8 ounces because of the way it wore. The material itself was hydrophobic. It wouldn't hold moisture, and it wouldn't hold the moisture's weight. So the ability to have this product that I could send to my friends and say, do me a favor, I'm sending you 3 shirts. Please try it. And if you like it, give one to each guy in the locker next to you. And if they both like it, please tell your equipment manager and have him call back so they can actually spend money, to buy the product. And along building, that sort of ecosystem, I started with the name Under Armour because it was just the name of the first shirt. I didn't know it was going to be the brand because I thought the brand had to be, it couldn't be more than 2 syllables. It had to have a hard consonant like an X or a K in it. And like you look at all the brand books, and then over time we realized that the brand was this company that basically developed this new industry called performance apparel. The access to getting there were all these players and friends of mine in those first 3 years of having them try it, give it to the other guys, and then one team would play another team. And very quickly, as those teams played other teams started wearing it. And I got a call from Georgia Tech was my first college, and then Georgia Tech played Florida State. And then Florida State's equipment manager was actually now the equipment manager for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you began to watch this sort of grassroots way in which the brand be able to grow and really take hold and take shape. And from that, I realized that I wasn't trying to look for a brand name with an X or a K, but I was more focused on the category, this essence and idea of people should care about what they wear and the ability to wear it in a product or a brand that actually focused on making you just a little bit better when you wore and participated with apparel. So that was like the foundation. And as a result of it, and I'm sort of crunching it all into a tight time frame, but that first year in business in 1996, when I started at a little row house in Georgetown in Washington, D.C., living upstairs, sales office on the ground floor, keeping inventory in the basement, and shipping it out and sending it, we did $17,000 in revenue. Then we did $110,000 in revenue. Then we did $400,000. Then I moved the business to Baltimore in 1998. Then $1.3 million, then $5 million. So our first 5 years in business growing from 0 to $5 million. The next 5 years in business growing from 5 to just under $300 million. That was 2005, the year we went public. The next 5 years was growing from 300 million to basically crossing $1 billion. And then the next 6 years after that was going to $1 billion to north of $5 billion. And that growth and that trajectory was something that was like, I never set out to build a brand. I was really focused on at first building the world's greatest t-shirt for football players, but then I realized that the baseball players began to ask about it, the lacrosse players asked about it, the girlfriends of lacrosse players began to ask about it. And you watch this sort of network grow, which was organic, is that at UA we like to say we've not yet built our defining product as a brand because like all things, this is a journey that we're just discovering. So today we have a chance, we have a shot, we have nothing more. We have challenges, we have people pushing at us, and it's a competitive field. But I can tell you the essence of what we do is still very much there of Under Armour living what we call our vision statement, which is to provide you with performance solutions that you never knew you needed, but yet once you've tried them, you could not imagine living without. So that's a little kickoff into that.
Kevin, a couple of questions for you. The first one is, so when you started this in '96, different time, in that category, no competition, but just finding the most important thing, which was a product that worked and a path to sell it, because without knowing where you're going to sell it, it doesn't really mean much. When you think about today, 2024, a lot of people knocked off what you started. Do you think the same kind of philosophy works in the age that we're in today, and also the way technological fabrics have really improved since 96 or 95, whenever you were starting to play with it?
Well, I think I used to say that Under Armour used to own this DNA. You're right. I believe that we created the category of performance apparel that now every brand sort of uses that to characterize their sport performance line. But we didn't finish the play because we allowed lots of other people to come into our space, which I think is what we could see where the industry was going. I used to say you could shop Under Armour with a blindfold on, meaning you could walk in a store and you knew when you hit the Under Armour section because it felt different, it felt yummy, it felt like wet, it felt cold, it felt warm, it had like these properties that people had never focused on the apparel. Again, innovation in our industry was really focused on footwear. And so I look at today, and I think, John, it's the reason that I wanted you to come help us. When you and I met, whatever it was, nearly 2 years ago, and we'd known each other and had a mutual friend, but we'd never just gotten together. And then one day in New York City around holiday time, we went to Laura, sat down for lunch, and just said, man, our brand now, I think we own this space of innovation and science and technical, but we lost the plot or we missed the boat on really being, are we designed forward enough? Is that more central and a part of us? And so I think I'd love to ask you, John, and maybe just like frame for everybody. You're from Allen Park, Michigan. You were an athlete. There's got to be some Michigan love in here somewhere. Yeah, there you go.
There's a lot of Detroiters here on this, a lot of Detroiters on this boat.
But you were a baseball player, went to the University of Michigan. You started your career you were a salesperson for Ralph Lauren, and all of a sudden you're working for Ralph, and you're the best salesperson, though, is that you changed the game. And then on the side, that you love design, and you put yourself through FIT to learn and build a design background. And then the time at Ralph to then moving over to Calvin Klein, and like some of the things which is, I think where John is just a legendary designer, is like building the first boxer brief. If you remember the Mark Wahlberg campaign and what that was, is how John did that. Really, a pioneer in so many ways. Then the Varvatos brand, your 15-year collaboration with Converse. So we've been around and dancing near each other for a long time, but maybe my question to you is that why Under Armour? You could do a lot of different things, but why'd you accept? Why'd you take my call?
Well, first of all, you were a legend, and I only heard like great things about you over the years. And when we got together, it was immediately a warm feeling between the two of us. It really was. And we went for like a quick lunch that turned out to be like 4 or 5 hours with tequila and bourbon. And he has bourbon, I have tequila. We both had spirit brands.
John has a brand with Nick Jonas, a tequila brand with Nick Jonas.
Yeah. And but what's interesting for me about that conversation is that Kevin, really wanted to learn a lot more about me. And at the same time, he really opened up about himself, from the time he was young to his, success at Under Armour, and then the challenges at times. And that pretty much anybody has with growth from time to time. It's not always easy, especially as you're going through the kind of growth that you were going through. It gets down to people. So we were talking about all that, and then that was right before Christmas, and I remember over the Christmas holidays you sent me a note and said something about it being serendipitous, like our meeting, like you were thinking about me, and I'm thinking, oh, he kind of likes me, But it was exactly what I was thinking, and so we continued to talk. And but here's the thing about Under Armour. I've known about I didn't know it from '96, but I knew about Under Armour from around '99, and I started hearing about it and seeing it in some of the street basketball courts in New York City. You'd see kids wearing a lot of the tanks and the T-shirts and shorts at that point in time. And I was also aware that they had also knocked off the boxer brief that I created at Calvin Klein.
Which helped finance the company, by the way. So ours was called the Boxer Jock, and it was like this thing we could make in one color, one style, and...
But I am wearing them right now, and I will tell you that they're better than the ones that I did, okay? Everything about them, and I'm enjoying them. My wife's sitting over here, and she's heard me say, like, I'm cleaning out my drawers. I haven't done it yet, but I'm cleaning out my drawers, and it's only going to be Under Armour in there. So they really are a terrific product. But it really got down to a connection with Kevin, the same kind of work ethic, ethos in terms of the way we approach things. I like that we're different as well, because you don't want to really, if you're really going to partner that closely with each other, each one needs to bring something different to the table. And so we started talking, and it turned out to be like, let's try collaborating and see what happens. And I don't know, within like the second day, he was already asking me, talking to me, sending me to other meetings, that type of thing. And I never felt like I was really collaborating. I felt like from the second day, I felt like I was already working in the company. People were very accepting of me in there. I think a bunch of people wondered what I was doing there initially, but then they'd see me, I'd be in all these meetings. And it just moved kind of quickly like that. And then, at the end of this last summer, I guess August, around Labor Day or something, Kevin asked me to take on the role of the Chief Design Officer for the company. And I was like, I love this company. I have to say, there's something about it that I really connect with, and I love doing great product. Yeah. I love working on the product. It really is my passion, and I thought, like, I can help you. I can help this company, and it can be a fun time for all of us. It's going to be a lot of work because you've got a great base, but we need to introduce new consumers to this brand. We need to re-up the customers that are already into the brand, and the ones that we've lost over time as the brand shifted and, as you said, kind of lost the plot. And that you got to do as a team. That's not something you can do on your own. Might have the vision and the ideas, but you really got to do it as a team. And so it's really about, there's a great team there. I've met a lot of terrific people and a great partner to work with for sure.
So John came to us, and it is about the team. And one of the things that I always felt confident in is that we had the best fibers, our proving grounds, the amount of time it takes for us to get a product to market. It's not just slow and bureaucratic, but it's really, it's about getting the right factories on board. It's about approval of the right fabrics. It's about the design process. It's about athlete testing, of making sure that every product that we build begins with the story of the athlete problem it's solving for. And I always felt confident as an entrepreneur, as I've been doing this now 28 years, 19 of them, as a public company, which is never the easiest thing. And recently actually stepping back into the CEO chair and looking at our team, which is something I couldn't be more excited or thrilled about, and taking this approach of basically a $5+ billion entrepreneurial startup that has the benefit of 17,000 people, doing business in over 100 countries, 1,800 retail stores around the world, and then the security of being able to have the luxury of stepping back with a balance sheet with over $1 billion on it, of saying, how do we now make the right decisions for the brand? And I've always had the confidence of being able to get to that 80, 85%, but that last 10, 15%, that je ne sais quoi, do I say that right? The brand essence, the pixie dust that goes into it, which is that design of having a leader like John. And more importantly, what John's job was to come here to help do was as much about evaluating our talent, helping us building a new design studio in New York City. And then most importantly, at UA, we talk about our job description as a company: product, story, service, and team.
Yeah.
Number one, first and foremost, make great product, above all else. If we screw everything else up, as long as we make great product, we'll be okay. But the best product, the most important product that we should be able to make is our story, the way that we communicate with consumers. Tell them why this is a product that you couldn't live without. Service is like all the other things, and supply chain and operations and the pieces that go into it. And it's certainly not back office or back end, because you need both. And then fourth and most importantly is our team. And the job and the role that John has taken as a mentor, and almost reverse mentoring as well, with some of our young designers, and how we put that together, of putting an essence of, there's a great quote which is, without beauty there is no performance. And so Under Armour, I think you can count on us as a durable quality brand, but what you're going to find is that we're a brand that's ready to compete. We don't like sort of the way that the market has gone for us, and that now we're at this point of, if you listen or watch our video, we've got a little bit of, we're pissed off for greatness, and we want to build great. And so, John, maybe when you look at the brand, that collision of culture, design, and innovation of sport, how do they come together, and what's the future vision look like for our brand?
Yeah, the thing about the company that also intrigued me when I came in the first day actually is the technology behind everything. And it's not just in the fabric technology, it's the testing grounds that we have both in Baltimore and Portland, Oregon. So in Portland, we test all of our footwear in ways that you can't even imagine, to really understand the really technical importance of foams and cushionings and how they help you. And then in Baltimore, we do all the fabric testing, and it's everything for strength and durability to, as Kevin was talking about before, wicking, getting moisture away from your body, keeping you warm in the winter. We have such amazing technology. Our down jackets, I was saying this winter, are too warm. They're just we don't need to be as warm as that. Unless we're doing certain things for mountain climbing, they're unbelievable, because we've created this ceramic technology that goes into the lining that it keeps the heat in. So there's all those kind of things. So I think there's so many things that go into, to answer your question, that go into it. And now today we also have the whole thing of street. We have what's going on in the street out there. We have what's going on in athleisure, as I hate that term, but that's what the industry calls it, athleisure, in casual performance. if you think about running shoes out there, and I was working with 15 years, as Kevin said, with Converse, so they were owned by Nike, so I spent a lot of time with them. And I always used to ask, like, what percentage of your running shoes are actually used for running, like just not everyday wear? And we never really got the real answer, but when you really get the industry studies on it, it's less than 90% of it is used for just average streetwear. So you need to be, Kevin says sometimes, like, the shoe's amazing, it functions great, but can you wear it with a pair of jeans too? And you need to think about those kind of things. At the same time, everything that we're doing today at Under Armour is going back to its roots. We're looking backward to move forward. And going back to the roots with that, we're really looking at, is that the best fabric that we can use? Is it the best material in the shoe? Is it the best cushioning? Can we win a race in this shoe? Every single thing we're doing, we're going back to the roots. And we're really calling the premier part of what we're doing today the halo. And when you think about halo product, you think about like a triangle with a good, better, best strategy, with the part at the top, which is really your halo, your better part is in the middle, and your good part is at the base. And so you can get a lot of people into your brand, but no difference, as I said to Kevin over time, like somebody like North Face, who I also worked with along the way too. They create product for the mountain, but think about how many people really buy a North Face jacket to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Not that many people. But they buy it because they believe that the product will deliver for them and its quality, and that's exactly how we're approaching everything that we do. I have a question for you, Kevin. So you just came back in officially April 1st as the CEO again. You've been connected with the brand, but I think about 7 years ago, you stepped back a bit. And I can tell you I'm super enthusiastic. I know the organization that I work alongside with is like, when we heard the news, there was a lot of fists up in the air and excitement that Kevin was back in the house, because he really is, like, on top of a great leader, a visionary, also a great cheerleader for the organization. And so what's different? Like, you've been gone, you've been still connected, you're still you were chairman of the board, so you're very connected with the brand, but day to day, there was another CEO in there running it for at least the last, 6 years? Was that? So what's different today? What's going to be different now? Because it's a new journey. It's like you said, there's already a base there.
Yeah, I think for, look, again, I never had a vision of building a global athletic brand. It was really one foot in front of the other, from building the world's best t-shirt for football players, and then realizing that lacrosse players liked it and baseball players, and then their girlfriends that were on the softball or girls lacrosse team, they started wearing it, and realizing this was a bigger idea of what performance could be. So the vision of the brand is something that still continues to, maybe not surprise me, but I realize how it's incumbent on me to make sure that we have the bigger vision of what we can be. When you're starting out as an entrepreneur, everybody gets to this place where you're thinking, okay, now it's time for the entrepreneur to hand the keys over, and you bring in professional management, and you hope that the snowball is big enough. And it's like, well, I guess we're just going to get to compounded growth, and it's okay. And it's hard to communicate because it is too passionate. It is, too much of a vision. It needs to be down to the brass tacks of what Wall Street's looking for. And I got to tell you is that in the last 4.5 years of not being a CEO, I feel like I've learned almost as much, if not more, than what it was as a CEO, is that you realize that part of my job has to be, disarming the team that you're dealing with. Is because a meeting that I'm having with Susie tomorrow at 2 o'clock, it's not just another meeting on the calendar, but something that she's poring over to think about every word. And so to the leaders out there, I ask you to bring great empathy to that. I ask you to make sure that listening is like such a critical part of what we do, of understanding from our team, understanding where the community, where the culture is, and understanding how that impacts people. When I start with, is having a hard time, everybody right now, it's that we have to begin that with the day, and I think that's the job of a brand, is to become one of those concentric circles in your life that you can trust. Trust, I like to say, it's built in drops and it's lost in buckets. And what a brand is where you have maybe your your group of friends from growing up. You have your group of friends from from church or whatever your religious affiliation is. You have your group of friends from the gym. You have your group of friends. It's important that you have this place, which is a brand, which is meant to be a safe place for us. That today's day and age, you can't say it's apolitical because it's just too much a part of what we do. But it has to know who it is, and it has to know what it stands for. And I've got to say, in today's day, it reminds me so much of the lessons over the last 28 years that I've been able to learn about brand. And like brand to me, there's different kinds of companies in the world. And like, how does Under Armour want to be led? I could tell you that you be a product-led company. You could be a marketing-led company, a consumer-led company. I've even seen a supply chain-led company in parts where it's about the efficiency of how are you getting the last drop of margin out of something. Under Armour is meant to be a brand-led company, which to some of you is like, well, what does that mean? It's a little ambiguous. It's exactly meant to be that. Because it is in part product, it is in part story, but so much of it is about the inspiration. Is that the idea for Under Armour that I've always wanted to convey is that every product we build, and the task that John has, is not just making great-looking design product, but making sure that every time a consumer participates with our product, that they feel like there's a superpower inside. And it's for that little girl or that little boy that puts it on for the first time. I've actually witnessed this firsthand in a store in the Northwest, like more than a dozen years ago, and watching this little boy and little girl walk into this retail store, and it was like it was a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and the mom was with the 12-year-old, and it's like they walk in the store, and it's sort of like the little 10-year-old's like, Mom, look, it's Under Armour, Under Armour. And she's kind of like, don't go there, stuff's expensive. And I'm like sitting behind the fixtures and watching, and I'm like, go. And the kid walks over, and I watch him take this compression shirt when I think about every product that we do. Imagine that. Every product we engage. And this kid, he's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's after school, he's got his collared shirt on. He takes this compression shirt, he pulls it over his head, sticks his arm through, watch him walk out into the middle of the aisle, and he yells at his mom, he goes, hey, Mom. He goes, look at me, I'm wearing Under Armour, I can do anything. And it was like at that moment that I'm like, wow, that's brand. And it's not just like the DNA that's in is going to make him a little faster, jump a little higher. How will it help him at warm-ups, at a tryout for a team or making varsity? But also for like that little girl, little boy on their first day of school, when you're standing in the lunchroom with the tray in your hand and you're like, where am I going to sit? When we're delivering and doing what we're supposed to, it's when you have that feeling like, oh, no, today I'm wearing Under Armour. I've got that special DNA. And if we can take that essence of what and who we are, that brand that was built from UA, and we can establish what John is a legend in being able to bring to us, as well as with Yassine Saidi, who became our chief product officer, who joined us from a career at Adidas and then Puma, where he ran their select business, which was all their collaborations, and most recently working with Rihanna and The Weeknd the last 4 or 5 years. But seeing this energy that's coming of people saying, wow, if we could harness what you have in this authentic way and be able to pull that through and really pull the culture through, hopefully we can have you walk out today with, number one, inspiration about what Under Armour can be and can mean to the consumer, to the world, to yourselves, because I don't know if you wear Under Armour today. I probably think you're maybe not mad at us, but we just don't consider us. And there's nothing worse than being irrelevant. And so we're doing a lot of business, as John says, is that we're doing a lot of good level business. And the goal that we have is we're doing some better level business with nowhere near enough best level business. And what we found today is that price is never, that's not a hindrance for a consumer, depending on the consumer you're looking for. And I always wanted Under Armour to be an achievable brand. I wanted it to be that sturdy, that durable brand, that brand for that everyman, for that little girl, little boy. But in order to do that today, it can't just be what we're delivering for them on court, on field, on pitch. It's not just Steph Curry wears it and he's the most amazing basketball player in the world, but it has to be the fact that we're going to give you and bring you cultural credibility every time that you participate with UA.
You know what, when Kevin talks about brand, it is the most important thing. In the end, that's all you have. So you have to protect it with everything that you have. And it's the soul of the brand that really connects with people in the end. It doesn't really matter what product you're selling, that's for sure. When I look at brands like Under Armour, I think of it as one of the great American brands. of the 21st century, because it really came around. It started in '96, but it really started to catch fire in the early 2000s. And there's not that many great American consumer product brands out there that don't kind of like, you know, either they take off like wildfire and then crash and burn. And this company still has its soul. It still has its ethos. The DNA is burning very, very hot within the internal combustion engine of this company. So always easier when you have that, and when you also have the founder that's still a young guy, that still can drive that and still has the passion to do that. But within each of us, you know, we look, Kevin does a lot of other things as well. He's done a lot of other things. He's very much focusing on Under Armour, but he's a serial entrepreneur. I consider myself the same, not for the sake of just doing it, but doing things better. Like, how can you do something that you love that's out there, but you can take it and do it a step better?
So John, take me through that real quick, because one of the ways we are thinking about that, collaborations is one thing. It's the way we'll be thinking. We've got some major collaborations that we're working on that may change flip the script for people on how they think about us, but it's never one thing. It's about their interest in us, and us maybe not just chasing the way the world has done it now. And maybe just touch on, if you could, how AI affects an industry like ours as well.
Yeah, I was listening yesterday when Diplo was speaking and talking about AI, and I know there's a bunch of other talks here about it as well. And in fashion, it's also, for sure, fashion and sport, in that it's very much permeating aspects of it. And, you know, with everything that you read and hear about it, and if you're engaged in it, and I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole recently a little bit on it, I'm by far no expert. But what I sense is that there's a lot of good to it. There's also the scary part of it, because it's easy for people to take what you do and basically do a very close version of it. And, you know, with the world today, you can't trademark every single thing you do. We do 10,000 styles a year between everything that we do, and you can't trademark them all. But the one thing that's interesting about it is that if you use it right, and Kevin's seen some of the stuff we're starting to work with it, is you can actually take your actual designs and your actual fabrics and your actual techniques and technology, and you can be able to present it in a way before you even, and this can be for the car industry, just about any industry today, present it in a way where you really know where you're going with it before you spend all the money to produce it, to manufacture it, prototype it, test it, buy inventory in it. You can really have a sense of it. And it's an exciting moment, I think, for us in the industry. I think there's a lot of people that are fearful of it. I'm not the most technology-driven person, but I always embrace it for a brand, because without it, you're left in the dust. And that gets to be, when you talk about collaborations and other things out there, so much of it is how you communicate, your messaging, your story. Are you talking to the consumer properly? Do you even know what consumer you're talking to?
Yeah.
How do you communicate? So it's all of those things that are so important. And I think with those kind of things, the more tools that we have to communicate in a better way, in a very soulful way, is important.
So we're going to build the collaboration of John with Under Armour, and I say that because it is the bigger brand, and now having John a part of Under Armour is so important. But what I'd like to do maybe is just leave you with sort of the vision, I think, of one thing for the entrepreneurs in here, especially maybe it's someone with a legacy company that's thinking, how do you reinvent yourself? Because the fear I think that we should all live with, the careful paranoia, the healthy paranoia that we should have, is, you know, what's happening or what's coming next. And there's a vision that's out there that I believe existed for our brand, and something we did years ago. And it speaks to, from AI to what the world's going to look like in the future. And when you think about things as important as ESG is, as important as it sits for our company, you know, what's the world doing about it? Is that, you know, we can worry about fossil fuels, which is important, but one of the biggest, you know, offenders to ESG is actually, it's our own conditioning in rooms like this. HVAC is right now, we're all in here and we're temperaturely cool and the air conditioning's on, but it's not just conditioning yourselves and your own bodies, but it's conditioning the upper corners of this room, and the reason is why. And so I think about UA is that what would we do? And the biggest concern I have, it's not what's going to happen from Nike or Adi or you know, the up-and-comers you see is the Ons, the Hokas, the Alos, the Warriors, like they're out there, we see them. But we have to ask ourselves, what would we do if we were the watch industry? Right? If, was it 4 or 5 years ago, you woke up one day and Apple decided to invade your industry. And they took your core SKU and they changed the game. And so we ask ourselves, what keeps us going from a design ethos, from an innovation ethos, is what would it look like, is what would the product they made? If Apple made a shirt or a shoe, what would it look like and what would it do? And more importantly, who's the brand in our space that's doing that now? Because every brand should think about if you're going to get invaded by the Tesla or the Apple type of innovation. And so we put this vision together, which I think might be a little bit helpful, is that things like, you know, why do we heat or cool the entire room? Why aren't we just thinking about the microclimate that exists between our apparel and our skin? And what would a future for that look like? So maybe I could just roll this video real quick and set you a sense for what you should expect from UA going forward, is that if it's hard, if it's something that you haven't thought of, if you're just thinking of, I'm just going to throw a shirt or a shoe on, we think we'd like you to think a little differently, and that's the position that Under Armour expects to hold in this industry that we've had before, but you'll see us drive harder a little more. So let me show you a video that we built called Future Girl.
Our job is to make you better. To make all athletes better. To inspire you. To empower you. And to connect you to the world's greatest design and innovation. All you must provide is the will to make it happen.
We haven't made that suit yet. It's not available yet, but when it is, it'll come from UA first. And so maybe I can just leave everybody with a little bit of where we hope or expect to combine design with incredible innovation. You'll actually see it next week, and this is an inside tip for Summit attendees only by Jordan Spieth. And this is a place where our job is at the Masters next week, which is one of the most important golf tournaments in the world. And so what we're doing is we're unveiling innovation. We're taking the athletes that we already have relationships with, that are already wearing our brands. We're saying, how can we change the game? And one of the places that we looked at changing the game was on a hat that Jordan will be wearing next week. And it's pretty cool because you think to yourself, innovation, this is, what's the ISO chill, cold black fabric that is actually keeping them cooler and lighter and stretch and moisture and all those things. But the hat's one of those places, which is one of the white spaces that we saw, and saying that's a place for us to innovate. And so we built something that actually changed the game from what makes the hat innovative or cool or neat or that I like it is just the logo on the front, into what about the actual performance of it. And so in my hand is something we have called the Under Armour Stealth Form, which is going to be a hat that Jordan Spieth will be wearing next week, which is the world's first. It's uncrushable in its performance because it perfectly feels like Under Armour, and something that I can keep in my pocket or my hand that will be out there. And the idea about it, and Jordan knows this, when he makes a bad shot, he's not supposed to throw a club, but he's supposed to take this hat, throw it on the ground, step on it 6 times, and then be able to pick it up and pop it right back into his hand with wicking, moisture management, ISO chill. So we're incredibly...
One piece, too. One piece, it's amazing.
So this is like the innovation that you're supposed to see in the world, and hopefully what you can use this as a metaphor for what you'll find from apparel to footwear to shirts and shoes and socks and everything else that we do. But we have a chance, we're in the fight, and I'm thrilled to have a partner like John, like you've seen, and the amazing team that we have, 17,000 people around the world. So we're just getting started, and we hope to blow you away and make you love us. Thank you all very much. Cool.